this evening's session is looking at the topic of integrating art, culture and creativity into teacher professional development. So it's now time for me, as I say, later on, we'll have time for Q&A, so please keep your questions coming in on Zoom and on Facebook. But it's now time for me to introduce our speakers for this evening. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Lavinia Hirsu, who is a senior lecturer at the School of Education at the University of Glasgow. And she has been involved in a series of international projects and coordinated projects aimed at supporting translingual practices in multilingual environments, as well as projects around the globe. Also joining Lavinia is Ang Wing-Up Ang, who is a research fellow from the Center for Higher Education Studies of the Vietnam National Institute of Educational Sciences. And she has extensive experience in the field of training English teachers here in Vietnam. Lavinia and Ang are well known to me and my colleagues from Vietnam because over the last 12 to 18 months, they've been involved in a very interesting project, and that's what they're going to talk about this evening. So without further ado from me, I'm going to hand over to Ang and Lavinia.
I am delighted to have this opportunity to talk about our project, and I hope that many of you joining us are coming tonight because you are interested in integrating art, culture, and creativity into your professional development. These are the three pillars of our project, and we are going to share a little bit of information about the context, the project's aims and approach in our project, what teachers who participated in our project said about the benefits of the things that we have done together. And hopefully in the second part of our session, we will share some activities for the classroom with you so that you have some practical ideas of how to implement the things that we share with you. So we do want a little bit of participation because I know it's hard to sit through a presentation for long. So we will have a practical exercise, a practical activity. And for that, we kindly ask you to grab a piece of paper and some color pencils or pens, whatever you have near you. But that's because we want you to be actively involved in this. And as you can see, Davide is already equipped with the right tools. So you will have those as well. And if you can have your camera as well too, because we'll do some sharing, hopefully. We want to make ourselves, feel closer to one another through this work. Okay, I'll pass it over now to Anne, who will introduce you a little bit to the context of the project. Anne, over to you.
Thank you so much, Lavinia. Hello, everyone. It's my honor to share with you first of all, the context of our projects. As you know, in the field of education, the demands of a dense curriculum can be a significant obstacle for both students and teachers. Teachers are often pressed for time and resources to deliver their lessons effectively. However, teachers are not just responsible for passing on information, they are also agents of positive change. They are accountable for tackling critical issues on a global scale, like climate change, environmental degradations, and the complex demands of a multicultural, multilingual world. Teachers have an opportunity to share the futures. And in our projects, as we are on the post of the COVID-19 pandemic, that has forced us to rethink about education. It has changed the way we teach and learn, emphasizing the need for adaptability and the resilience in our education ethics. Notably, the rich tapestry of local heritage and culture within ASEAN nations offers an exceptional opportunity. Our nations have a wealth of traditions, arts, and cultural resources that can be integrated into education to make it more meaningful and engaging. And in our projects, we are fortunate to see a growing commitment to professional development at the Department of Education and Trainings in 3 provinces, Bắc Ninh, Quảng Ninh, and Ninh Thuận. This commitment provides a foundation for transformative change in education. Our project has 3 core goals. Firstly, it aims to support the development of innovative lesson plans, activities, and exercises that go beyond conventional teaching methods. These activities integrate language learning with creative and arts-based approaches. Secondly, our project sought to enrich the learning experience by integrating local culture and resources into English lessons. This allows students to connect with their heritage and foster deeper understanding of our diverse cultures. And thirdly, the project aimed to foster collaboration between educators and local artists within the framework of teacher activity groups we call tags. The collaboration fosters fruitful collaboration and share the knowledge and expertise. Next slide, please. Yeah, and in our project, the heart of this is participation of our teacher. We have 329 teachers, and they represent the different socio-economic backgrounds, urban and rural areas from 5 ethnic groups: Kinh, Cham, Giao, Tày, San Diu. This diversity enriches the projects and makes it relevant to a wide range of educational contexts. At the beginning of the project, there are 36 facilitators and 14 local artists was identified to facilitate in the initiative. They were eager to explore collaborative works and innovative practices. And our teacher participated in 18 tags, which was led by 2 facilitators per groups. And the teacher had various levels of experience. 8 tags included primary school teachers. 7 tags included secondary school teachers, and 3 mixed tags brought together teachers from both primary and secondary school. And importantly, the English language specialists from 3 Departments of Education and Trainings of 3 provinces were instrumental in enlisting inspiring educators to take part. Their help was crucial to the accomplishment of this goal. And besides, we are from University of Glasgow and Vietnamese, and Vietnam National Institute of Educational Sciences. We are 8 researchers who shaped this project and ensure this success. And next slide, please. Yes. Our project implemented in 3 phases. The first phase, with the support of the DOS from Bắc Ninh, Quảng Ninh, and Ninh Thuận provinces, we began with the training phase. Over 8 sessions, we worked with facilitators and artists to prepare for the text. And in the second phase, the texts were a blend of English and Vietnamese. The text materials were thoughtfully designed to capture both languages, ensuring inclusivity. As a culmination, teachers prepared teaching portfolio showcasing their creative and innovative activities inspired by tech participations. This phase allowed us to evaluate the project's success and impact. And what makes this project stand out is our collaboration with local artists. These artists with expertise in various fields like painting, singing, music, theater, dance, and poetry brought a unique dimension to professional development for language teachers. These artists contributed in a diverse ways. from inspiring to performances to creating art-based activities and share their experiences. So it's my, now I would like to invite my colleagues who are going to talk more about our projects, approaches, changes, and impacts. Lavinia?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Anne. So you've heard a little bit about how we organized ourselves in groups, how we have worked across different levels of expertise, and how we brought together teachers and artists to exchange experience and expertise. Our approach was a holistic understanding of language learning and teaching. What that means, this is a term you may have come across, but for us it was important to share the idea that when we go in the classroom and our children come to these spaces, they don't come not knowing, but they come knowing things. They may not know English, but they know and they bring in other language resources. And we wanted to start from this idea that language learning starts from a position of resourcefulness. Our learners bring things with them to the classroom, and we wanted to enable that and use that as a basis for learning English. So our first idea behind the project was that every learner can contribute to the class, and they can do so because they can draw from their own languages, they can draw from arts-based skills, they can draw from things like body language, objects, materials from their homes and communities. And we wanted to use cultural resources and creative resources in places where arts thrive. And this was an opportunity for students and teachers not only to connect to arts as creative practices, but also to connect to arts in their place, in their locations. And when we went together on a couple of field trips and we had teachers with us saying, oh, we never knew that this artist was here, or that this art studio was in our province 3 miles away from my house. So that was an important discovery and learning opportunity for teachers. We took an interdisciplinary approach, and we wanted the teachers to think about learning and teaching English at the intersection of all these dimensions. Cultural heritage is part of our children's backpack. Arts-based practices are the things that enable the children to express themselves when they know or don't know certain languages. Multimedia and multimodality are two elements that enable us to express and communicate effectively, not just through words, but through words and images and materials. And we've also brought in the theory and practice of translanguaging. And some of you may be familiar with this concept. And it's the idea that when we are learning a language, we are learning across all the language systems that we know, all the language resources that we have. Now, you might wonder what this means in practice, and we'll share some of these things with you. But I just wanted to very quickly show you the impact that the teachers shared with us by taking this approach, by working in this project. For many of them, they saw concrete changes in practice, and they saw an increase in confidence, not only in the confidence of pupils who started speaking and engaging more, but also in the level of confidence that teachers had. We saw changes in collaboration and community, because through tags, through the teacher activity groups, they had an opportunity to work with one another. We saw an increase in cultural and artistic pride, the fact that teachers could teach English in a context where they could also bring in their cultural and artistic heritage. We saw changes in the sense of change, that teachers felt that they have the authority and the space to change, to make things exciting for their pupils. And ultimately, they felt that as a part of this project, they engaged in things that mattered. So here are some examples from some of the classes and the activities that teachers did. And you see there on the left of your screen, it was a project that integrated sustainability. And here children developed lamps, and they used various materials that they hand in their classroom, and they also used recyclable cups. And in the middle, you have the children working in groups on developing a model. And they were looking at how they can use various materials and design and create together. And on the right-hand side, you can see a description of an instrument that is used by the Ragalai community. And all of these activities, you may think, well, they are hands-on, they are practice, but what they enable is they enable children to share language that they care about, because they do things that they care about. They share language not just in English, because we are in the English class, but they are also bringing in words that matter to them from their own community backgrounds, from their own families, things that are important for them. So it's not just a matter of learning the words that we want them as a teacher, but it's also learning the words and building the knowledge and building the language knowledge that they want to invest their time in. And I want to share with you a couple of key concepts that we worked around, because we talked a lot about art and creativity in our project, and we used art in multiple ways. First, we used art as a content, as a topic. So oftentimes you can see this integrated in textbooks across the world, where arts-based materials, culture-based topics are brought into the curriculum. And here you can see a design that looks, a drawing that looks at water puppetry, which is a particular type of theater and arts practice in Vietnam. So you can see here an application of using art as a content, as a topic, right, as a focus for the lesson. But we also used art as a medium. And on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see a creative poem where you see integrated Vietnamese words with English words. And that speaks back to the concept of translanguaging. When we don't know all the words, we can still learn English words in the context of our mother tongue or other languages that students might be familiar with. So this ability of moving between languages actually unlocks the ability to communicate, because that's what children want. They want to be able in our classrooms to contribute. And if you go into a class where you don't know the language, then they need to know that they are allowed to bring in what they already know in order to build their knowledge towards English. And the third way in which we used art was as a method. And here I want us to do an exercise together. Okay, so going to the exercise. So here is one activity that was recommended that was added to our toolkit, and we'll make available the toolkit at the end of the session if you want to try some of these activities and add them to your own teaching practice. This was an activity that was suggested by one of our local artists, who is an artist who does a lot of paintings and is very much invested in the cultural traditions around surrounding painting in Vietnam. And this is an activity that can be done in stages, and you can make it more complex if you have in your classroom older children, or you can scale it down and make it targeted towards younger children, depending on the complexity and the target language items that you want to explore. But here is the activity, and I want to make sure I'll keep an eye on the chat. If you can let me know if you are ready to do this exercise together, if you have a piece of paper next to you, because part of our project was successful because the teachers were willing to put in the time and be learners in the same way our children are learners in our classrooms. And it's only by doing the activities ourselves that we get a sense of how it works and how it feels and what are the gains. So I want us to do this together. So in the first stage, you can see that this is a two-stage activity. In the first stage, I want you to think about a pot, a flower pot. It could be a flower pot that you have in your house. It could be a flower pot that you've inherited, something that has been passed on from one tradition to, from one generation to another. It could be your grandmother's pot, or if you don't have a pot, it could be an imaginary pot. Just the lines, the main lines of your pot. You can think about the shape, the size, the purpose, any additional elements. Does it have a handle or not? Does it have a base or not? Okay. So we are all very good at this. So we finished it very quickly in less than a minute, right? Our students may need more time, but as they do this exercise, there is the sketching of the line stage, and then you can ask your learners to share and write a short description of their flower pot. Okay, this could be a short exercise where you ask them to go home. It could be a homework, because you can actually ask them to go home and explore in their house. Do they have a flower pot? Or ask their parents, and this becomes an intergenerational opportunity for learning, where they can ask their parents, how do flower pots look like, and where are they in the house, and where are they coming from, and why are they designed the way they are. So they can do a little bit of a story, a short description of what the pot is. Okay, so this could be the first stage. Now, with the second, now that you have done the first stage, you could take a quick screenshot if you are happy to share your work with us a little bit later, before we go on to the second stage. And with the second stage, we can paint in, okay? And we can add color. And at this stage, this could give you the opportunity to talk about color. This could give you the opportunity to talk about details. If you're focusing on teaching flowers or nature-related elements, right? You can focus on those and you can start building that vocabulary. You might want to talk about drawing in insects or drawing in whatever elements. You can draw a cityscape, nothing can stop you to focus here your students' attention on a particular set of vocabulary, or also leave the task open to their imagination and use what they care about, right? What they know, what they see from their family, to add the details. You can talk about colors, and you can work through the difference between warm colors and cool colors. So there's a little bit of art-related knowledge that they can gain through the activity. But at this stage, we're adding more detail, and we're building new words, new elements to our knowledge. And these new elements, as I've said, they come not just from one place. This is the vocabulary list, right? We're going beyond the vocabulary list. We're taking the words that matter to the children. So I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes to color in your flower pots at this stage. Now, depending on your aims and goals, this could be broken down into small lessons or small exercises, or this could be a longer project that you do with your pupils. This could be one class, or it could be broken down into stages, so that you are able to implement it at the beginning or at the end of a class as a creative exercise. I know that some of you were worried about how to integrate such an exercise as part of your class. And this is actually one of the things that we've heard a lot from our participating teachers, who said we have way too many things to do. And one of the challenges, how to balance it and how to integrate art that might require a lot of time. Well, one strategy would be to break it down into small bits. As I said, parts of it could become homework. Parts of it could become 5 minutes of an activity that builds towards the final project. So you don't need to devote an entire class or several classes only to this exercise, but you can do small bits with the children and let them come back to the activity and develop it more across several lessons. The other thing that I often ask teachers, when we are working with such busy schedules, is where is the gain? Do we gain from doing 10 exercises in a class, or can we equally gain from doing 6 and 1 creative exercise? And you don't, it is a matter of, it may not be possible to do creative exercises every day. But from our experience and from the things that our teachers shared with us, the power of these exercises lies in the change of perspective, in the fact that you are buying time for learners to know that they can contribute. Yeah, somebody has suggested this would be an opportunity to teach shades of color. Absolutely. That's a brilliant idea, Gladys. Thank you. While you are uploading the photos, and please share some of your great drawings, I will talk very briefly about this idea of art as method, because this was one of the challenging aspects in our work, to think about art not just as content. Many of us are probably used to integrating art as part of key topics, right? So we probably have done exercises in the classrooms with our children where we talked about traditions, right, or cultural events. Halloween is coming, so some of you might want to do a topic on Halloween, Christmas time, right? So all of these, in Vietnam, we had lessons on Tet, right? That is a big celebration. So we are familiar with these ideas of art as content and art as medium. But if we think about art as method, what happens here is that we use the process, the different stages of developing your creative piece, while you are also, the idea is that thinking of art as method slows us down. And while it does so, by working through the various stages of building towards your piece of art, you are also building language in various ways along the way. And you are doing it from a position of knowledge, of knowing. You may not know all the words, but you can bring in words from other languages. You're building words that you care about because you are drawing things that you care about. So it is less prescriptive and less constrained from that standpoint. And it gives the children the opportunity to put their worlds into visuals, and with the visuals, they put on the words to those visuals. I'll stop very quickly here to share the Padlet, because we are getting some very beautiful drawings, and that also shows you the opportunity, that gives you the opportunity to see diversity, to see the diversity of our worlds, the way we think about shapes and forms, and something as simple as a flower pot. For older learners, you can transform this into a research project, and you can ask the learners to actually go into their communities and find out about various artistic approaches, motifs that oftentimes get put on flower pots, because these are culturally specific. A flower pot in Romania, where I come from, looks very different from a flower pot here in the UK, and it looks very different from a flower pot in Vietnam. Not that there is only one way of representing a flower pot, right, in any of these countries, but because there is a diversity of how we imagine things and what we put on them. And I want to thank all the courageous participants here who have shared their flower pots and their designs. I can see fish and lines and butterflies and flowers and fire. Looks like a fire underneath, similar to a vase my grandmother used to have. I remember it from when I was a toddler. And this is the kind of story that it enables you to access. It's the story of our lives. It's the story of objects that matter. So that's how language happens. That's how language learning happens. You learn things when you care about them, and they are very meaningful to you. And for the last couple of minutes, I want to pass the mic back to Anne, who would like to share with you another quick activity and resource, which is also from our resource book. And we'll share the resource book at the very end, so you can explore other ideas. Anne, back over to you.
Thank you, Lavinia. It's been exciting to see your own vase flowers. Beautiful. Yeah, we'd like to share with you about another way to explore cultural heritage through Quan Họ folk songs. And Lavinia will tell you about the book, the resource book we created at the end of other presentations. But you can see it here. There are two alternative activities we have made to introduce you to you. So the first column here, some introductions about Quan Họ folk songs as a UNESCO recognized cultural heritage, to give you a background of what are the Quan Họ folk songs. And the second one is a mini lesson plan we created as an alternative activity you can use in the classroom. And another activity is about grammar focus. So you can use the song to explore, the verb tense, present continuous tense. And because of limited time, we don't have time to work with you step by step, but we do hope that you can use the materials, and all the ideas were taken from the British Council materials, and we adapted from here and from the reference, so you can see. And if you have any questions, please please let us know. Thank you, Lavinia. I think, it's time to give to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And the idea here is that you can either engage with the lesson plan that we have showed you, or you can explore your own local traditional songs and use those as powerful resource for learning and teaching. We talked about resources, and here you have the QR code that takes you to our website and the resource book that we have created and is available for free to download. One thing that we want to emphasize is that all of these resources are seeds for you to take, adapt, and grow in your own context. We have shared these resources not as take them as they are, but take them and make them your own, because all of our work is about putting it in context, connecting it to local arts, connecting it to the things that matter in your place, to your students and to their families. That's when learning happens best, when we learn the things that we care and when we learn from the basis that we have. That's the powerful position to be in as a learner. We will stop here and we will share a thank you in all the languages that were relevant for us in this project. And I'll try to use the camera, although I'll not promise it will work. But this is the point where we'll turn it back to you for questions and comments. And
brilliant, thanks.
We hope you took ideas from this.
Yeah, lots of positive comments from everybody, and including on Facebook. Here's one from Rufa Bagania, Magbagai Badel. Apologies again for my pronunciation. Thank you. Surely I will use this method in my grade one, with my grade one pupils learning through art. So there's a very nice comment to start this last. A couple of comments that I'd like to pick up on. Two things you said, one right at the beginning and one right at the end. I love the idea of learners as a resource. I think so often teachers, we think, oh, what's the resource? It's a whiteboard, it's a computer, it's a course book, but we forget that our learners themselves are a resource. The students in the classroom, the teachers in tonight's webinar. So that's one thing. And the second thing that you said right at the end about making it your own. How can we make this, adapt it for our own context? That goes back to exactly what Penny was saying in the previous session about teachers having agency, teachers having control over our own work and in our own context. So I think that's really important. So two very nice messages that I take away from this evening. But I just want to go back to a couple of things that you said, and then we'll go through some of the questions. It's great to see all the thanks coming in on the chat as well. Yeah, quite a few comments, and one's just popped up in my Teams channel. People asking about whether and how you could adapt this method with adult learners. I don't know if Lavinia or Ang, you'd like to share your experiences, because we had about at least two or three questions about that.
So we have, as we mentioned, the project was completed in the context of working with teachers from primary and lower secondary schools. But all the activities that we have created draw on principles that are applicable to any context of language learning. Some of the ideas and the practices, the arts-based methods practices that we have explored in our project resonate with any learner at any stage, because when it comes to our connections to arts, local practices, I assume that the adult learners are going to draw a lot of benefits, particularly because they are positioned in a place of having accumulated all that cultural knowledge to draw on. So they will have so many experiences to go back to in terms of cultural aspects that had fed into their life experience. So many of the tools that we are sharing could be adapted for adult learners, and it is a matter of taking the leap. I would say that in our course we had teachers who were not sure that this will work. Teachers who said, well, I'm not an artist, so how can I do this? Teachers who said, I don't have the artistic knowledge and I don't have a lot of time for it. And, you know, it's not within my remit. And oftentimes we said, try it out, just try it out and see how it works. And it changes relationships. It changes the dynamics between the teacher and the students, because it puts everyone on a position of creativity and bringing something in. As a teacher, we oftentimes bring in the English language knowledge, right? But as learners, we have to ask ourselves, what do our learners bring in? And that's where you develop your pedagogy and teaching practice of English. When you answer the question, what are my learners bringing in? And how do we put these together?
Thanks, Lavinia. Yeah, can we move on to another question? So we've covered that about how to adapt it for adult learners and other groups. There's a question here that came in quite a few minutes ago now from Huang that I think is really interesting. So Huang asks, as we have a fixed schedule, we can't integrate art, culture, and creativity into the lesson. For example, if I want to teach kids on the day about the Lunar New Year, because the holiday is coming soon, you know, it might be a challenge. Students can come home, tell people about the holiday, at least they know words about the holiday. But we don't have time to do that. What can we do? And another question that's kind of related to that as well, I think. Somebody was asking before, I can't remember exactly who asked the question, about the role of, and maybe some resistance from parents. They might think, why is the teacher spending time doing arts or music in an English lesson? Why aren't they focusing on the course book, focusing on the curriculum? So maybe kind of two separate but related questions there, if you could perhaps pick up on those, Ang and Lavinia.
Thank you, Lavinia, and thank you for the questions. It's very interesting. As I also texted in the chat box that, you know, actually the parents are considered the first teachers of their children in their lives. So it would be very interesting and brilliant if the family members can learn together, particularly, you know, learn how to draw together. So I think this approach, art-based approach, is not only for the teacher to teach children at the school, but also it's very useful for all the parents to you know, learn and help the children. You know, and started, if they can start learning, you know, how to draw together in, you know, in the house, it would be fantastic and it would be fun.
Thank you, Anne, and thanks to those of you who raised these questions. The first one, we don't have time. I agree, time is limited, and that's one of the challenges that we put at the very beginning of the presentation, and we heard that time and time again. The question is, how do we use that time? And the reality is that we are not hands tied. Teachers make decisions. And marks, you need to achieve certain goals, but you make decisions, and in those decisions, in a 50-minute period, you decide how many exercises are going to achieve those goals. How are you going to approach? With the translanguaging perspective and the arts-based perspective, sometimes you do need to allocate specific time for working in certain activities, because arts-based methods are about creating the space to think and work through the things that you want to learn and know. But if you are, if you feel that you are so, you know, tied up in your day-to-day class, I oftentimes say that it also goes back to your approach to teaching. How do you present English? Do you say to your children, this is an English only class and we only speak English, if they are unable or they are not there? Because what we may risk there is to actually tell indirectly to some of our children, well, if you don't know English, then you don't have a space to talk. So the way we can flip that around is that we are in an English class and we are going to do these exercises, but we are going to build on what we know. And when we don't know a word, you'll say it in your language, in your dialect, and then we'll find its friend in English, right? The word friend in English. So sometimes it's not just about stopping the class and creating a new project. Sometimes it's just about the way you approach your teaching, the way you approach the language. And then the other thing that I will highlight in relation to the question about parents' role, it is true, sometimes parents themselves think about these very separate objects, right? So my son or my daughter goes into the English class, therefore they should only listen and hear and speak English, right? But our children do not come with empty minds in our English class, ready to absorb English. They come with their own mother tongues. They come with a language that they know. They come with the words that they use on a day-to-day basis. And that's the starting point. We cannot say stop using Vietnamese or Cham or, you know, because that will be in their minds. That's what they are using on a regular basis. And for the idea of building time, one thing we found, for instance, in Vietnam, the curriculum, the textbooks have a unit at the very end, have an exercise at the very end of each unit that encourages teachers to do creative activities. And what we found out was that teachers were investing so much time in the first part of the unit that oftentimes they would never get to that creative unit because they would think, oh, you know, it's optional, it's extra, it's this fun thing, but I don't get to do it. With this exercise, they looked at that end and they put it in the main curriculum. So that element which was there from the beginning, they said, okay, I'm doing this project, I'll try this. And then they saw how the children opened up and how they became more engaged and more excited to contribute to the lessons. And it was this very small shift in something that was already there, because that element was there in their textbook, but they never got to that point. So again, it's the idea of how do we set the parameters and how do we decide what to keep in as essential, and where do we want to bring things in from a different perspective.
Thanks, Lavinia and Ang, for that, and thanks for that question. And I love what you said about just then about building on what we know. I think that's so important in the classroom, going back to what you were saying earlier about, you know, our learners bring things to the class. We build everything we do in our lesson, we should build on that prior knowledge, and that's so important. And everything you've been doing through this project and looking at integrating art and culture and music, and people mentioned theatre as well. I think it all goes together in terms of how we can integrate those things in our English lesson.